Fabulous. Are we good? Awesome. Hello, everyone. How are you? How's your day going? Have you ever noticed that when you have conferences like this, things don't always go exactly according to plan? Yes. So I took an unplanned detour. You might notice from my accent that I am not local. And so I'm thrilled to be here. I actually have been at Salesforce for 2 years, and I started my first week at Salesforce in London out spending time with customers. And when your job is to spend time with customers, that's a fantastic way to start your job. And so I'm here, at least once a quarter, and it looks like this year probably once a month. In the UK and Ireland, which I love. And today's unplanned adventure was having a lunch with a local executive. And do you remember what your first day on your job was like when you started your Salesforce world? Were you nervous at all? Like the first time you were actually releasing something that would affect like the whole organization? Well, the server, I think, was having that day because it was her first day. And during the lunch, she spilled the entire platter of food on me. So I was like literally I was immersed in vegetables and salad dressing. So I've invested in the local economy here and had a customer experience at a local store to procure an alternate outfit. So it's funny how things, happen along the way, right, of these journeys. So interestingly enough, the product roadmap that you built was a little bit like my experience of you have this perfect plan and then one day a whole bunch of things, sort of come avalanching your direction. And what happened for us is we're a team at Salesforce whose entire job is to spend time with our current and what we hope are our future customers, understanding the problems you're trying to solve, what you want us to build next, what our competitors might be doing better than us, and what do you want out of experiences like this one, for example, or for the kinds of forums where we have your bosses and executives and people that you work for getting together to give us feedback. So what happens is when we listen all over the world, that could be live events like these. It could be surveys. It could be focus groups. And we take all of that and figure out what it means so that we can help the business change what we're going to release, what we're going to build, how we do our marketing and messaging, even those keynotes that you might see or watch online at Dreamforce and what happens at World Tours. Well, for us, we had the opportunity to get a new chief product officer at Salesforce. How many of you knew that we have a new chief product officer? Okay, a few people. Well, so his name is Bret Taylor, and Bret's thought process was that he wanted to start out his new role as chief product officer of Salesforce out listening to customers. And so we had this very interesting experience where, by the way, you can tweet him at any point if you folks in the room have done that already. But he wanted to start out with understanding what all of you want us to build next. And so the challenge he gave us was, help me understand the top care-abouts of our customers and a few prospects. And he wanted to hear from people who were decision makers and also from people like you. So as we launched out on this roadmap tour, what we were trying to do is essentially give him the opportunity to stand up in front of our entire company last week and share the product roadmap and the priorities for the year based on the feedback that we got from all of you. So it was our first time that we've really had the opportunity to do that, to start the new year with a new executive who has built an entire set of priorities. And so we tested a series of messages that you'll hear about. And some of the folks who were at some of our stops are here today. So at the end, they're going to talk a little bit about your experience. And I wanted to share with you a little bit about what we heard and what we're doing with that information, and then what's going to happen next. And for those of you who did not have an opportunity to participate yet, I'll share a variety of ways that you can still continue to give us your feedback. How many of you know V2MOM? Do you know what that phrase is? A couple of you. So at Salesforce, that's our vision setting for the year. So it's our vision, our values, our objectives, our methods, and our measures. So it's all of the things that we plan to accomplish for the year. And does anybody recognize this guy? Yes. So we did give away an Astro sweater at every stop. So he was the winner here. And Carrie's photobombing in the background. So don't miss that cameo appearance by her. What we wanted to be able to do is make sure that we were hearing from a variety of people in a variety of places. So we went to 7 cities and 2 countries in 2 weeks. So very condensed time frame to test out these messages. And something that happened as we were doing that was, we're sharing the information out on Twitter, and every day we were adjusting the message based on who would be in the room the next day. And so one of our stops along the way was here in London. And we partnered both with the Trailblazer community team and with our sales teams to make sure that we could get a great representation of different sizes of business and people doing different kinds of work. So, along the way, it was interesting how, in our first city, we were testing a couple of messages and asking for priorities. And our approach was to have Bret stand up as our Chief Product Officer, do a welcome, and kind of our overview message about the fourth industrial revolution and our high-level themes of what we were trying to build. And then have some of our experts talk about those themes. And then right before we went to the session break, we would stop and do a survey and ask people in the room just 3 simple questions to put the themes that you're hearing in priority order. Then after the break, we would share those results and give people an opportunity to talk and give us additional feedback. So just to give you a little bit of a sense of who was in the room, so it was about 1/3 people like those of you who are sitting in the room, and the remaining 2/3 were different decision makers. And you can see, again, a balance of customers and prospects, and also you can see all different sizes of business and different industry verticals. So what we've been trying to do within our team, and in fact, when I spoke with all of you a year ago here at London's Calling, we talked about the work that we've been doing as a team to make sure that every voice is heard. And one of the most powerful things, and thank all of you for what you do, is you're great and consistent about giving us feedback. We have a variety of events like this where we can meet with you. We have the idea exchange. You're all blogging. Lots of you are very active on Twitter. And what happens is sometimes that feedback doesn't always get shared across the whole organization, right? Not everybody gets to engage with you in that way. The same thing happens with really senior leaders, right? We tend to engage with really senior leaders, and this is what I talked about last year, in person. Well, that doesn't scale very well, right? There's only a few of us on our team, and there's a whole lot of people out there. So we've really focused over the past year on building ways to take feedback here and a variety of different cities, in a variety of different countries, different job roles, and put that together so that every single person at Salesforce every day has access to who you are and to what you care about. And one of the things that Bret's trying to drive in his role is the sense that we're all accountable for understanding who all of you are and what you care about. And how is life different if you're a user group leader in, I met someone from Cyprus, the user group leader from Cyprus. I don't think he's in here right now. But if you're the user group leader in Cyprus versus you're the MVP sitting in San Francisco, how is what you care about different? So to give you a little snapshot along the way, these are the different cities that we visited. So you can see Bret up here on the top right kicking everything off. And as we went from city to city, there were a couple of things that were consistent. So we'll do this as the audience polling part. Since our team does polling and surveys all day long, what do you think the number one ask from all of these great faces up here was of our new Chief Product Officer? And we kind of did it as a fill in the blank. Salesforce, please make fiscal year 19 the year of, what do you think was the top word? Or what would your top word be? Shout them out or raise your hands.
Lightning feature parity.
Lightning feature parity, great call on that. What else? That did come up, by the way. Other guesses? Or what would you ask for? Carrie. Marketing Cloud. Is anybody else dealing with Marketing Cloud? Is that fun? Yeah, no, lots of head shaking now for all of our viewers at home. What else would you ask? GDPR. And that's a great example. So in the United States, when we have these conversations, it doesn't come up quite that way, right? You're in a different place here with regulations and the timing than in some other places in the world. And so that was definitely a topic here. Data quality, data integration, data regulation. The way that theme showed up in a lot of other cities was if we want to realize this vision of Customer 360 together, that is one area that has to be addressed. And what's the Salesforce role in that? Other asks.
I guess the FSL SDK has come off the roadmap, hasn't it?
Yes.
What's happening with that?
Yes. So the topic of what has come off the roadmap was definitely raised. And that was raised in 2 different ways. So if you're someone waiting on features and trying to use things, it was, why did it go away? Are you sure it won't come back? Why are you building some features only in Lightning after we've been asking in them in Classic for years? Flip side of it was with some of the other people in the room who are maybe not using and developing on the products every day, the ask was to be more transparent about our roadmap, to make it easier to plan, right? To have more runway to understand what's coming next.
I guess B2B commerce as well.
B2B commerce, yes. And tell me more about what you think the ask would be there, or yours.
Strategy. So is Commerce Cloud always going to stay B2C, or is it going to take on B2B as well? And is there a clear strategy there?
Excellent, yes. So this topic of help us understand, and there were several categories here. So the difference between Marketing Cloud and Heroku comes up. Our different collaborative tools, like where does Quip, right, fit in the mix of that? From a cloud strategy perspective, it's Retail Cloud, Commerce Cloud, B2B, B2C. How does that come together? You might be interested to know Salesforce is bringing back our B2C event called Connections. It was formerly called Connections. It's going to be called that again, but essentially to focus on some of these topics and sharing our roadmap and strategy for going forward. But yes, one of the things, and Bret talked about this when he stood up in front of the whole company, is most people when they talk to us, it was you were talking to us less about I'm a B2B company or I'm a B2C company. It was more about how do all of these capabilities come together to enable your customer success. And a lot of times we will break those down, right? At Salesforce, we'll think, well, if you're B2B, you want something totally different, and that wasn't necessarily the case.
Well, most people are both, right?
Correct. Most users are both. All right, so all great guesses. So I will reveal, and great asks, reveal a little bit here about what it is that we actually heard. So we tested these 4 themes, and you can see, and we did a demo with each one of these, but you can see across the themes here, complete. So lightning was, the top topic underneath of complete. And one of the things that we discovered when we were having the conversation about that theme is, for most people, when they told us complete was their top priority, what each person really said in their own words was, the thing that I've been asking you to build or fix for forever that hasn't gotten done yet, my top ask this year is for you to just finish what you started with that ask. And those did range from things like Lightning feature parity to completing our Marketing Cloud integration and our acquisition of Commerce Cloud, getting those actually added to our portfolio in a meaningful way, and also starting to build out more of the data integration pieces that were brought up around the Customer 360 strategy. So complete was one theme. Another theme was integrated. So doing more to bring together all of our clouds and capabilities so that they will operate seamlessly on our platform and get you out of the experience where you click on something and it looks like Salesforce, and then the next click, right? What does it look like? I see lots of smiles. It looks like the company we acquired it from, right? And then the functionality then of making things easier to integrate into your environment. On the intelligence theme, we talked a lot about Einstein. And the conversation that happened here most frequently, we would ask people, and I'm curious here, how many of you are doing any work on AI-type projects? We've got one. And so what was interesting, that mirrored itself across multiple cities, which we heard people saying, I'm curious, I'm interested, I'm maybe considering it. And the biggest gap here was lots of asks of real use cases. People would reference, it's great that at Dreamforce or at World Tour, you find one really huge company that's doing one really cool use of this. How can I tell if this is ready for me? Where would I get started? I need more real profiles of real companies. How much time did they invest? How much money did they invest? How many people like you did they need, right, to make this happen? And in what timeline did they realize benefits? Next category is empowered. How many of you are Trailhead users? How many of you are Trailhead Rangers? Way to go. Impressive. Has anybody hit like the double level? We've got a couple. Oh, Louise. All right. Good job. I aspire to that. I was asking somebody last night for tips on, I'm like, all right, I have 68 badges, but not the same equivalent number of points. So I'll take tips from all the Trailhead Power users here. The other piece we talked about beyond learning and enablement in Trailhead was Trailhead Journeys for guiding people through apps and solutions. So how do you make it easier to create a Trailhead type experience that takes a new user or potentially a repeat user on a path through how to discover additional features and make it easy for them to adopt and use All of these products and new features that you're spending time every single day launching and maintaining. So a whole conversation there, and it was interesting because at a more detailed level, there were lots of questions about where would we start deploying that. And for some of the very senior executives, it was essentially, how quickly can you do this? Anything that makes end user adoption easier, we would love. And so part of the discussion in the product organization is how to do more of that it's embedded from the beginning when you're rolling out something new. And then the last theme, this is a little bit more around the small business market and our small business portfolio of products called Essentials, which was all about making it easy. And so we tested that in a few cities because we had more SMB people. Stephanie heard a little bit about it in Atlanta. And lots of conversation there about, is that the right place for new customers who are getting started? And where do you grow to from there? And how much more is Salesforce planning to build out in this space? So just by show of hands, we then did ask people to rank these 5 themes. Which one do you think was number 1? I'll do show of hands for complete. Okay, we've got about half of the room. Show of hands for integrated. Okay, just a few people. Intelligent. A few more. Empowered. We've got 1. What about easy? All right, so tell me, if you picked complete, tell me why you chose that. Anybody who chose it.
I guess there's a few things that you expect should work, and kind of as soon as you try to use them the way you want to use them, quickly fall short. So it's something that happens quite a lot, especially when you're trying to move to Lightning or companies trying to move to Lightning. So getting those things finished and buttoned up before moving on to the new shiny.
Excellent. Yes.
Similar. There are some things that you can do in Classic when you move across the Lightning. It moves you forward loads, but then there'll be 1 or 2 things that you can't do.
Yeah, so it sounds like finishing what we started on roadmaps and feature parity. Any other reasons? Yeah.
Well, it makes a confusing message for your ecosystem, right? Because you're pushing one thing, Salesforce is pushing one thing, but the customers and the implementers might not, the practical implications.
Right. So a comment in the front is essentially you're selling us a vision, and when we're out there actually having to deploy it, it might not align exactly with the vision, and maybe make it harder to bring along end users.
Yeah.
Others who chose complete, yes.
Somewhat similar. It was a bit oversold or over-communicated the first year and a half. Then after that, people were a bit, I'm not going to check anymore.
Right.
It's not being done. And now that it is done, people are evaluating some part of the customer base.
Right. So when we get ahead of ourselves and we sell you a vision, and we leave it up to you to check and see if that vision, is ready for you to implement in your organization. You check for a while, and then you run out of energy. So how do we put the burden of proof on us instead of on you? Great feedback. Stephanie.
From a customer perspective, if you're on the idea exchange because you came across a very specific problem, and you actually find an idea, and you keep seeing people posting on that, but the first entry was like 7 years ago or something.
Yes.
And you think, oh, maybe it should have been closed by now.
So ideas on the idea exchange, why did they not get closed? We're going to talk about the idea exchange in a minute, so thanks for bringing that up. What about somebody who chose integrated? Why did you choose that? Consistency.
People don't see different interfaces. Whichever product they choose to use.
Okay, great. Anybody else on integrated? Louise.
For me, it was because we're trying to position Salesforce at the center of our org and our technical stack, and so integrating even things like Marketing Cloud, but also other systems is key for adoption and success.
So if Salesforce is going to become your system of record, we have more work to do to make that possible. Any others? What about if you chose intelligent? Somebody who chose intelligent, tell me why that was your top choice.
I think it came overall like all the different citizens. So just because you guys really pushing innovation and helping us to get faster, and AI is everywhere in conversations right now. So you're the enabler for a lot of organizations to be able to get there.
Excellent and empowered. Chose empowered, yes.
I think without education, you don't get adoption, nor do you get the product moving forward by people understanding how to take it further.
Well, so here's how the results played out in the room. So we asked them in every city, and we put them together. Bret shared these results with our entire company last week as part of his conversation. So what you can see is integrated came through as number one. And it was such a loud and clear message to Bret that he has named a person on his staff, formerly of Marketing Cloud, but his name is Patrick Stokes. And Patrick is leading the integration strategy for tech and product. So if you looked at how our company priorities and values were listed for the tech and product organization before the product tour versus after, we made adjustments based on your feedback. And this integration topic resonated so much with Bret, bless you, resonated so strongly with Bret that we now have an appointed person who's accountable for it. Bret put together with Srini, our Chief Technology Officer, an integrated priority list for the year for the first time. So they're literally integrating, the way that we're working together, and detailed out some of the top use cases that he heard from all of you, many of which were mentioned in the room today. So one example of that one was definitely at the top of the list. Number 2 was complete. And one of the things that we learned about complete was we need to describe it as something different than complete, because every single person in every single stop had a very different expectation and definition of what that meant, which means we're in a spot of perpetually disappointing you. So part of what we learned is when we're doing messaging back to you about these priorities and care abouts, we have some work to do to align how we're defining it and what we're saying we're going to release with what it is that you're expecting and need. So look for some changes coming here. But what definitely came through loud and clear was what needs to happen with Marketing Cloud and Commerce Cloud, both bringing them into the core as well as finishing out the roadmaps there and continuing our journey on Lightning. Einstein and Intelligence came in number 3, and Empowered was 4th. We had a very small number of people who listened to Easy, so it wasn't quite fair to stack rank them in the mix. Yes?
I assume those colors are where they rank them 1 to 4, right? So
yes, correct.
So like the Intelligent and the Empowered are sort of way down, like the 3 and 4, almost as like.
Yes.
You could have. There's also other things that you could have maybe even put in there that could have come in at 3 or 4 above them. Things like analytics.
Yes.
Which might fall under intelligent, but is more practical.
There were lots of conversations around analytics and dashboard capabilities, right? Making it easier. If we make progress on making Salesforce your system of record, then how do we make it easier for you to get your reporting and analytics back out? And what does that path look? And there were lots of questions about, is that a use for Einstein? Does Einstein make that easier? What are our options? And to account for the fact, by the way, that in these 4 themes, we might not have asked for everything that was on your mind. Thought you might be interested. We let people write in some comments as well, so that everybody in the room, after the break could see them. And these were some of the themes that really came up in more detail. So simplification. How many of you love doing the workflow design? Have you ever noticed that some of that gets complicated, right? So simplification matters, especially when designing workflows. So that came through loud and clear. Lots of conversations about user experience and more user voice in what we're doing. Another topic that came up was, is Lightning like the beginning of a bigger story? Are you just getting us warmed up with how difficult Lightning has been? Because like in 3 years, there's another something that's even bigger than Lightning? If so, please tell us now so we can start getting ready. And so, one of the things that came through loud and clear to us on that was, as we continue our Lightning journey, as we continue to build out features and functionality, we also need to be messaging what happens after the Lightning journey. Do we continue to optimize? What's our bigger vision and what's the timeline to that vision? Third-party data, lots of conversations about third-party data and Customer 360. And those conversations ranged from what role does Salesforce intend to play in governing data, to quality of data, to conversations about data lakes, to security, and everything in between. The reality was, at the end of the day, lots of asks around helping to prioritize and message back to all of you where we're going next and what we're going to build next for features, so that as you're trying to integrate third-party data into your solutions, because Salesforce sadly doesn't contain every piece of data you need, how are we going to work together and what's our role versus yours in that? And then when we asked, please make FY19 the year of, so Lightning was definitely the number 1 ask there, integration. And then last piece was transparency. Just spend more time doing what we did in that room, which is sort of, where we're headed next is, how this journey is going to continue. So all that great feedback, we did an Olympic theme at our kickoff, so you can see Bret up here. having this conversation. But throughout the course of that discussion, you can see he shared the results. But in that period of time, we had the opportunity to listen to 21 hours of discussion, right, and heard from 146 customers. And one of the things that resonated with Bret was it's such a powerful way for everyone sitting in our organization to understand what you care about in a very personal way, that this is going to become something new that we do on a regular basis. So right now, you're getting to be the first group to hear about this, but we're planning on doing this 3 times a year. So kind of what we did, but continuing to go to some different cities so that we get the goodness of the global voice especially, and making sure that we're conscious of some of the cases that come up internationally that don't always come up in the United States, and the goodness of enabling more participation and telling this story. The other piece that will go along with it is, as we do each one of those tours, coming back to all of you and doing things like what's happening right now, which is letting you know how your feedback is changing our priorities, and also creating additional ways for you to engage, which takes me to what's happening with the idea exchange. So if you're interested in participating in future product tours and have future product feedback you'd like to share, I'd love to hear it. And also, as we're going to other cities, we will continue to draw on our user group leaders and members of our Trailblazer community, because you're a very powerful and important voice in the process. So as we come back, please refer others. And I'll give you a chance here in a moment to hear from some of the folks who participated. So the other piece, too, we talked a little bit about the idea exchange. And so that is one of our team's sources of feedback that we work on all the time. So all of those ideas that get more than 2,500 votes for each roadmap release, totaling up the points, bringing them into the conversation so that we can incorporate that point of view into what we're planning to build next and how we prioritize it. What we acknowledge is that the idea exchange as a technology and as a platform and candidly as a system is in need of a refresh. And so just like what we're doing to refresh our product roadmap by listening to you, we're wanting to get some input from all of you and from your colleagues around the world about what you would like to see in the next version of an idea exchange, or some way that we can take what you want and what you need from products and organize it in a way that we can get it to the people who can take action on that every single day. So the person on our team who's leading that is Jenny Sachs. Some of you have met her before. But you can either email her, you can tweet me, you can send me an email from our conversation today. If you're interested in being part of our advisory board that will provide input and have the opportunity to see some versions of that before we get it launched, we would love to hear from you. So if that's of interest, certainly let me know. And Jacob from our team is going to be in Amsterdam next week with the user group there. He'll take the conversation there, and we'll continue to do this around the world. So we want to make sure it's a global point of view as we build out what's next. So I have the opportunity to see some of these great people who are here on the slide because they participated with us at different steps. So I wanted to give them an opportunity to come up and share a little bit about what their experience was like. And a special thank you to Inez, who wrote a blog about what her experience was like. Now, I do have to say, she did that completely voluntarily, not because we asked her to. But she shares in her blog there what it was like to be a part of the experience, what she heard. And so I'm going to give Louise, Jody, Stephanie, and Carrie an opportunity to share the point of view that you referenced and some of your observations about maybe the culture of Salesforce and tech and product that you experienced as part of it. What you'd want your colleagues to most know.
I gotta go first?
Stephanie was on our very first stop, so that's why she's speaking first.
Okay. Yeah, so was fortunate to participate in this, and I've also participated into Mark's Dreamforce keynote previews in the past, which is kind of the same thing. He goes around to different cities and is like, this is what I'm going to talk about. Is it good? Should we change this? And what I found really interesting and exciting was from that, even before going to this product keynote, like he changed the keynotes for Dreamforce based on what we said in those dinners and that feedback. So having a product roadmap thing, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so exciting because I know they're actually going to take action on this. And I mean, Karen just said how they already have. So I'm excited to see how it continues.
Jody, Carrie, Louise?
So something that I think is really interesting about being in these sessions is actually, I think the London one was later on, so therefore we were giving feedback and you were able to key in, okay, well we've heard similar themes with that, and there was a lot of keying in about how, okay, well we've heard that before, yeah, we understand that that's resonating. And I think, so I work from a consultancy side, so I talk from both, as a consultant, what I need in order to put it in, but then I also work with customers, and in the area that I'm working in at the moment with Marketing Cloud, we have to upskill those people. So you see it from both sides of taking people through that journey. So it was really important. Plus I had some feedback which I just needed to get off my chest. So that was great.
Do you want to share with your colleagues what your top feedback was?
I think some of it was about it being an integrated platform. So when we look at Marketing Cloud or we look at core Salesforce, I've had experience of core Salesforce for probably 8-10 years, and now I've moved into Marketing Cloud for the last 2. And when you work with Marketing Cloud, it is different. Like the way that you approach support, the level of information that is available is different. So Salesforce now is really well described and is actually it guides you through a process and stops you from doing things. So for example, in Salesforce, if you try and delete something, it didn't used to, but now it will tell you where else it's used. Whereas within Marketing Cloud, you don't get that. So you can do a number of things and it will allow you to do them, and you think that you're going along the right path. And then you might find out that you shouldn't have gone down that path and you needed to get backwards. And sometimes it's difficult to get back to where you were and time consuming. So.
Awesome. Jody.
Actually piggyback off of what Carrie said. So one of the things that I really wanted to know about was CPQ, which we actually didn't hit, but Karen did a great job of getting me some additional information. But to Carrie's point, CPQ is so different from Salesforce. And you're trying to actually use it in Salesforce, and you think, because the platform is so mature, you think it's going to work exactly the same, and it doesn't, not at all. But the other thing I would say is, I was one of those people that didn't understand what complete meant. But I got really excited because Mike said that BPM was going to be in Salesforce, and I've been asking for 10 years. It was like, yay. So complete to me is not making, whether it's your sales reps or your service reps, having to bounce out of Salesforce and back in. So that's why BPM was so important to me, because I've done where you got to go to Pega and then back and blah, blah, blah. So that's one of those people that don't understand complete.
And one of my biggest takeaways was that became immediately clear that the team were genuinely looking for our feedback, good and bad. I somehow managed to call Lightning a revamp with Mike Rosenbaum in the room. I quickly apologise for that. I appreciate it's a lot more than a revamp, a reskin, just undermine all that work. But it genuinely was. There was feedback was both positive and negative. And I don't know any other company where a customer is welcomed in to talk to high-level execs that have flown over to talk to you, and that they will take that feedback. And at times in the room, there was. People what do people remember most? It's the things that cause them pain, and so we're always quick to complain rather than say thank you, aren't we? But the team took all of that with good grace and gave us some good answers on that, and I'm confident that feedback hasn't just been she was moaning. It would be right, okay, this is a pain point for that customer, but also that customer and that customer, so let's move that up the priority list. For me, just them doing that, the team doing that, whether it was my voice or someone else's voice, is really important.
One of the things, it was great to see when you would say something, like Jody said that she just mentioned to me that she brought up, like, stop calling everything lightning. I was like, oh my gosh, I said the same thing. And to see their reaction when you would just like randomly say something like that, they're like, I told other people we should stop doing that. Yes, thank you for saying that. We're taking this back. And for them to get really excited about our feedback like that, it's like, okay, yes, they are going to act on it. Yeah.
By the time they got to me, though, they were just like, yeah, whatever.
We know, we've heard this everywhere.
Yeah, so along the lines, while you're thinking about questions that you might have, you mentioned the saying thank you. And so I want to say thank you to these 4 fabulous people and Inez for joining us on the tour and sharing their experience. And also thank all of you, because our team's entire job at Salesforce is to engage with you and understand what you care about. So we literally could not do what we do without you. And I will tell you, there are teams of people all over Salesforce who want nothing more than to delight you and make sure that we're doing what you need. So every time you give us feedback, there are lots of people waiting to hear more, which is why we want to make sure the idea exchange serves you in lots of these other ways. Questions from all of you or from any of you? Or other feedback that you didn't get to hear. And I'll go to, since I promised you could tweet me, you can just see it's at Karen Mangia very easily right there, or find me after or the rest of the day today. Any questions? Or any messages you want me to take back that aren't in here? Yes?
A few years ago, but it seems to have stopped a few years ago, there was a big push around sort of true to the core as like a theme.
True to the core.
A development theme, idea exchange theme.
Yes.
Presentation theme at Dreamforce, and that kind of seems to have fallen away quite a lot. I assume it's probably because a lot of people spending time building Lightning. But that, to me, that was kind of, it was comforting to know, even if they weren't plugging every single hole, that there was a bunch of people working on that.
True to the core is the question. And so yes, Parker Harris is still our #1 sponsor of True to the Core. We did do a True to the Core session at Dreamforce this year, and we do each year, so that we can stay true and honest to that theme. One of the things that we've discovered is because we have been spending time emphasizing themes like Trailhead and Lightning and Einstein, we haven't spent as much time talking about and articulating those themes. They are still in the idea exchange. They're still part of what we share in our roadmap feedback. There's still a session at Dreamforce. And what I'm hearing is we need to do more of that because it's gotten a little bit lost in the mix, and you're not the only one who's saying that. But it is still alive and well. It's still a category. It's still a topic. And it still has the great sponsorship of the right executive who cares very passionately about that. And he did make the comment, because he was in the San Francisco stop, about how happy he was that we've made a lot of progress on Lightning, so that he can go back to spending more time talking about and living true to the core, because it's definitely his passion. Others? Yes. Thank you, everyone. See you in the keynote upstairs next, right? Thanks. Thank you.